the RNC. So mi gente, next year is going to be 10 years old, and we do work, we build power contra, sin, y desde el Estado. So that means it's a framework that we learned from compañeros y compañeras in Chile. That means that we organize against the state, within the state, and outside of the state. So we've done a lot of electoral work. So coming up on this year for the election, we were like, damn, it's looking rough. We thought it looked rough like 6 months ago. It's looking hella rough now. Está bien cabrón la cosa. ¿Qué va a pasar con el Papa Biden? No sabemos. Pero nosotros sí sabemos que lo que... Sí, ¿verdad? El llamado del movimiento en Argentina. Pero sabemos que pase lo que pase, nosotros ya sabemos, we already know what Trump means. We already know what that means, but it just didn't feel right to just get into this Trump versus Biden thing. So, ahí viene el chisme. So the Chisme tour, we're going to 20 cities. Ya estamos aquí en Brooklyn. And part of it was, how do we go beyond Biden versus Trump? Ay, quiero estar hablando de estos pinches viejos ya. What's going on in our communities? What's going on in Brooklyn? What's going on in Los Angeles? What's going on in Atlanta? What's going on in Louisville, Kentucky? Because this election is way more than these two people at the top of the ticket. And no matter what happens, pase lo que pase en noviembre, lo que queda va a ser lo mismo lo que están enfrentando aquí en tu comunidad, en tu ciudad. So el Chisme Tour is about finding about qué es el chisme en nuestra comunidad y también celebrando lo bonito, lo valoroso que is worth fighting for. Because in the end, these things, these politics, this football, these people are playing, it's actually not what matters. It's what's right here. What's going on for each of you here in Brooklyn, here in New York City. So tonight we have a full evening. Primero tenemos un panel del estado de la política latina. So I'm going to introduce the person who's going to be moderating the conversation. This compañera resides in the planet of Brooklyn, but comes from el universo de Sudamérica, específicamente de Venezuela. Es una compañera que ha sido parte de mi gente ya por varios años. Es parte de nuestro círculo de liderazgo en la organización. Pero además de eso, she is a managing partner at the Center for Advancing Innovative Policy. She's also the co-host of Radio Menea. I don't know how she does it, but she's kind of at the intersection of like putting policy and perreo. I don't know. She got to explain how she does that. But join me in welcoming our moderator for the night, Veronica Bayetti Flores.
Wow, what an intro. Hi y'all, I'm Vero, and I use she, her pronouns. I live in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, in an apartment that I plan to stay in till the day that I die because it's rent stabilized. And I'm so pleased to be joined on this panel with this amazing group of people. I have with me Sandy Nurse, City Councilwoman from District 37, Aviléz, District 38 Councilwoman, and Shirley Aldebol from 32 BJ, Executive Vice President. So maybe we can start with Shirley. Tell me about your story with this city. ¿Cuándo llegaste? ¿De dónde? And what's your favorite thing about New York? And then we're going to go this way.
I was born and raised here in the Bronx. Sorry, but looking down. And my parents migrated here from Puerto Rico in the forced migration of the 1950s, and I say forced migration for many reasons. And grew up here in the Bronx, moved to Puerto Rico in the early 90s to organize workers in Puerto Rico. I was there for 6 years, came back, and started working for 32 BJ. My favorite part of New York is the people and the working people and the workers that we are trying to organize. And I think New Yorkers are the fiercest, most resilient, fighting people, in the world. My opinion, I'm a New Yorker. But that's my favorite part of New York.
Alexa, what about you? What is your history with the city, de donde vienes, and what's your favorite thing about New York?
So hello everyone, what a bunch of beautiful faces. That's right. So my people come from Puerto Rico as well. We come from a town called Veronica, which is like the north west of San Juan. And we came in the 50s, but my family wasn't convinced, and they were like, Chacho, this is too cold. They went back. And then they came back. They were like, my dinero, they came back. They kind of went back and forth for a number of years and finally settled in the 70s. I guess, you know, what I love about New York City is not different from what Shirley mentioned, is the flavor, right? Like, the whole mix. I love the grit. I go somewhere else and I'm like, this is a nice town to be here 5 minutes. I want to go back to my dirty grind, the flavor, the fever. I love New York City, and it doesn't tire on me, and I'm un poquito más seasoned. But I love this city and all of its stuff.
Amazing, thank you. How about you, Sandy?
Hey y'all. So I'm Sandy. Been in New York for about 15 years. I'm originally from Panama. Shout out to So yeah, my dad actually came here when he was about 17. He was young, black, undocumented from Panama, and joined the military to get his papers. And so I was born in Panama and traveled all around the world as part of being a military brat. So I've been here for about 15 years. My father has lived in Puerto Rico, so I have two sisters and two half sisters and a half brother who were born and raised in Puerto Rico. So we're all over. But I love, New York City is a part of my family's history. My brother's older mother was from here, so we had a lot of family here. When I ran for office, I met people on the doors who knew me as a baby that I never even knew. They knew who I was, because Panama is like a small community, and Black Panamanians are even smaller community, and they all know each other. But I loved New York because it's a world of worlds, and everybody's here. Everybody is here and represented and has their flags and has their community and has their restaurants and their food. And it feels like we're all able to be here, and we can live here together. And so that makes me feel at home as someone who's been all over the world. So I love this place. I love fighting for this place, and this is my home.
Yes. So I'm going to answer this question. Most of the questions are going to be for y'all, but I moved to New York City in 2006. I came here for school, and I moved to the United States in 1995 to the Midwest, and I hated it. And I was like, let me go back. I fought really hard with my parents about going back to Venezuela. I was not the kind of girl who would have said no to them or like rebelled. I wasn't very rebellious. So when I came here, I moved to Washington Heights, and the first night that I was in my apartment in Washington Heights, I heard this like corny little pop song from this Venezuelan group called Los Fantasmas del Caribe, which is like this group that like dressed in pirates and sang in pirate outfits and sang songs on like Style Sensacional. And I was like, I just like instantly felt home. I think I cried. I was like, I'd never been around so many Latinos in the United States before, and I was like, oh my God, this is my spot. And I've like felt home here ever since, so I stayed. My favorite thing about New York, it's so difficult to pick, obviously la gente, but I'm gonna say it right now because I just got a tattoo of her. There was a beautiful femme dinosaur on Atlantic Avenue, which is my favorite sign in New York City. Her name was Shirley, and they painted her over recently, and I was devastated. So I got a tattoo of her. Here she is. Look her up, Shirley. She's an icon. Okay, so let's start with you, Shirley. Share with us a fight story. What are some of the victories that New York has seen in labor, and what are some opportunities that you see for organizing?
I think I'll start with the organizing question. There's so much opportunity to organize, but organizing is hard. And you know, we need real, you know, coordinated, you know, work and campaigns that include, you know, elected officials who are going to support not only the organizing campaign, but pass legislation that's going to make it easier to organize workers. And, you know, I would say that Local 32BJ has been very innovative in its approach to organizing, in that we don't, we organize workers to win rights for those workers, whether they're in our union or not. We've had a fast food campaign, and the Fight for 15, I think, is a testament to that, because we were in the Fight for 15 from the very beginning. We started organizing fast food workers when everybody was like, there's no way you're gonna organize fast food workers. And we organized fast food workers, passed legislation in the city to get, you know, rights for fast food workers, you know, fair scheduling, you know, rights to full-time work, you know, health and safety standards, absent a collective bargaining agreement, right? And the gold standard is a collective bargaining agreement, and that's what we would want every worker to get to. But, you know, those organizing rights are very, you know, valuable. And to get those workers organized and fighting for those rights on their jobs, for dignity and respect on the job, I think, for me, is something that I'm, you know, very passionate about, and I think that, you know, we should all get behind. And then, you know, I'm gonna say something that is probably gonna make your eyes glaze over, but, you know, we fight for, you know, retirement security, right? You know, less than 15% of working Americans have a defined benefit pension. They have only to live on, and if they are citizens undocumented, they may have Social Security at the end of like 65, 67, 70 years, right, working. And people can't live on that. And so, and when you talk about Latinos, Latinx workers, African American workers, the number's even less. So we have a retirement security crisis in this country, and I'm passionate about that, not because I'm older. Part of it is that, but, you know, we just expanded, you know, pension benefits for 5,000 workers here in New York, right? These are, you know, and these are Latino workers, these are office cleaners that look like us, right? These are people that, you know, employers are like, those people don't deserve a pension. You know, some of them may be undocumented, some of them, you know, are not US citizens, they're certainly not white, but they have, you know, they can retire with some dignity. Okay, they can retire with some dignity because, you know, largely a female immigrant workforce that can now work and say, you know what, I can retire, and if they want to go to, you know, back to their country, they want to stay here, they have something that they can live on. And so for me, I'm very passionate about that, and that's a huge victory that we won, because I will say that in this country, we are going backwards on that. We're going backwards on healthcare, affordable, accessible healthcare. We put 6,000 people on the street of New York this past December to protect our affordable healthcare. Our employers fully pay family health coverage for all of our workers. We represent low wage, right, building service workers. They're office cleaners, they're residential porters, they're security officers, and again, largely immigrant, Black and Latino, who would otherwise not have access to free, affordable health care.
And they have free, affordable healthcare because we fight for it. And that gives me, fire, right? Because I see my mother and my father in every single one of the workers that we represent, because they didn't have a union. They worked 3 or 4 jobs to make ends meet, like many people who in this city and in this country have to do, and barely be able to make rent. We have people who we were organizing who worked at airports. We organized 5,000, 6,000 airport workers, contracted out airport workers who couldn't afford to pay rent, who were living in shelters. The unfortunate reality that people are working and they're poor and they can't afford to have a roof over their head, okay? It's not right, it's not just, and we have to continue to fight for that. And so those are the big fights, right? Those, I could talk about the big campaigns, but it's even the little fights of like 29 workers who the employer wants to take away their pension and replace it with, guess what, a 401k. That 401k is not guaranteed. Remember these words, defined benefit pension. That means that your pension is protected by law. You get it for the rest of your life. You can retire and live to be 110, and you will get that pension for the rest of your life. 401k, not guaranteed, right? So we fight for these things. It could be 5 workers, it could be 10 workers, it could be 5,000 workers, it could be 10,000 workers. But those are the fights that matter and that are important, and that we coordinate with our partners in government, our allies, our community allies. Those are the exciting fights because we're winning something valuable for our people. So,
Thank you so much. If y'all know, if you know, you know, 32 BJ is involved in all the big fights in New York City, so thank you so much for your work. Alexa, will you tell us a little bit about your district and the people, the places, and what are the big issues in your district? What's it like to represent that community?
So I represent, the number is District 38. That includes the neighborhoods of Sunset Park, Red Hook, and I've been redistricted. So now it includes the neighborhoods of portions of Park Slope, Bensonhurst, Dyker Heights, Bath Beach. So y'all know Brooklyn?
Yeah.
You know that southern portion don't like me so much. But I'm gonna talk about Sunset Park. Sunset Park is my home community. It's not the community that raised me. I grew up in East New York, but it's the community that I raised my daughters in, and it is their home and such. It is mine, and I'm so proud of this beautiful community. It's an immigrant community. It was, our district. What makes it unique is it's also the working waterfront. Red Hook and Sunset Park, actually first Boricuas came into Brooklyn, in the docks in Brooklyn, and then found their way into the Lower East Side, into the Bronx. But vibrant, the first Finnish co-ops, the first co-ops in New York City were founded by workers, Finnish workers in Sunset Park. Vibrant Mexican community, vibrant Palestinian community. It is all that makes New York City just like beautiful and flavorful. And I will say that we have some Sunset Parkers in the house. I will say some of my favorite places are Sunset Park itself. It's the highest point in Brooklyn. If you haven't been there, you're missing it.
Sunset Park pool.
Sunset Park is amazing. It is the highest point. You see all of Manhattan. It is a beautiful park. We have a large, vibrant Chinese community, which is beautiful. And you see everybody doing their thing in the park in such amazing ways that you're like, wow, I am here. But there's, you know, tenemos comida, tenemos agua, we have everything, and it's just a really great community, and I'm just so proud to represent it. It's a hard community. The pressures that we face in Sunset and in my district is like everywhere else, right? We're getting pushed out, and it's a fight for place. It's a fight to make sure that before, you know, you could be a working class person and buy a house and have your kids and have, you know, everybody knew each other. Now the kids are leaving and we have a transitional thing going on. And it really, it attacks cohesion, right? As, you know, fulana from up the block and all the chisme por allá and you know, now it's changing. So we're in a fight for place, right? To be there, because we shouldn't have to be gentrified out to get the things that we deserve, right? So it is both getting these things we deserve, but making sure our people get to stay and enjoy what they se lo merecían always, right? Good parks and, you know, all the amenities and stuff like that. So we're fighting housing, we're fighting for jobs, you know, huge, 50% of our folks don't have a high school degree, and so we're always finding ways to make economic viability for them and have working class jobs. You know, we got the lashishi, like, you know, high end innovation shit. Even nobody knows what that really is. So like, you know, it's really a struggle for keeping us presente. I mean, the Puerto Rican population in Sunset was one of the main Puerto Rican neighborhoods in New York City. We lost 25% last year alone. Our folks are going down south, right? Because it's too expensive. The rent is too damn high, and that's a real thing. So, you know, all those things is really the pressures that we're facing in my beautiful district that I'm so proud to represent.
Thank you so much for that. The same question for you, Sandy. Tell us about District 37. Yes, un aplauso. Thank you so much.
Alexa's one of my favorite homies in the council, so I'm really glad she's here. Adore her. I represent the 37th district in Brooklyn. We're in the upper northeast corner. Queens is our border. To the north, to the east, I represent most of Bushwick, the northern part of Brownsville, parts of East New York, and Cypress Hills. I have mostly Puerto Rican community. Bushwick is very Puerto Rican, although now we have a large population of Ecuadorians and some Mexicans. Hills is the largest concentration of Dominicans in Brooklyn, is in Cypress Hills. We also have a large Bangladeshi community, so we have a South Asian community, and a legacy of Black folks in Brownsville and East New York. And also on the east side of Bushwick, which they call the dark side, although many folks are both Afro-Latino, but whatever. So it's predominantly a Black and brown community, mostly Latino, and it's a poor community. I mean, it's rich in people and culture and love, and it's poor in cash. It's on one side, it's mostly people who rent. They pay more than 30% of their income on their rent. On top of just their basic income. Most people live in little railroad apartments with everybody and their mama in the apartment. We have, most of our buildings are old and are in some form of disrepair. And then on the other side of the district, we do have kind of like what was a really nice looking suburb that was like German at one point, that then now is like largely Dominican, a lot of homeowners, perception and maybe self-perception of middle classness, but not really. And so I think there's like some Cypress Hills, although it's a large concentration of Dominicans, also grew 20% in registered Republicans after Trump won his first term. So we actually became more red. And so we have an issue here in my district where folks are moving to the right, and there's a lot we can talk about in that, but generally, you know, it's a low-income district. Our biggest challenges are displacement and just keeping people in place. and improving their living conditions. You know, I think Alexa probably has the same thing. You go to your office at like 9:30 a.m. and there's people already outside the door. Most people who come through our office don't speak English. They are elderly. They have, most of their family members have left. They've moved on, they're still there. We have a lot of public housing. We have one of the last big public housing developments, Hope Gardens, NYC, is right in Bushwick. It's a huge development spread across most of the neighborhood. And you know, it's keeping people there, and people are behind on their rent because of COVID, $30,000 or more. It's like an insane amount of arrears that people are in. And so most of our community is drowning. Even if they own their home, they're drowning. Because they've aged in place and their people and their descendants could not stay. And so most of our work here is just, you know, finding creative ways to keep people there. And we also don't have a lot of, you know, new land for development, so we're kind of at the mercy sometimes of the market. And you know, we don't have as many parks as other places. We're constantly fighting for our share of city services and resources. It's a low voter turnout district, one of the lowest in the borough, and so, you know, people who are in citywide positions don't really pay attention to us. So we have to kick and scream and kick down doors to get anything we want and anything we need. And that's pretty much what we do. And I'm sure it's the same. We also have a big industrial space that we're fighting to preserve and preserve manufacturing jobs for folks. But, you know, it's not great. You know, the statistics are terrible. Like, the data on paper is bad. Living in the community is wonderful. We love everybody, you know, it's all love. But people are really, really struggling, and that's really the task at hand, is both proving to them that, you know, the progressive leaders and the left, that we are like different than what they've had, because they've had, you know, stale, old ass Dems who don't do shit for the neighborhood, and that's why they're moving to the right. And so we're trying to prove points to people and get them to be wanting to participate in anything, because they've been so disillusioned and so left behind. And so it's a several points of things that we have to do all at once, and the main thing is just ensure people that we're doing every single thing we can to keep them here, and not just keep them here to live in the same terrible conditions, but actually like level up and improve their material conditions on the block, in the unit, in their buildings. So.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your important work. I feel like it's so important, especially to keep folks in our communities as we see improvements, and not, you know, fight for folks to be able to stay and live with dignity. I'm going to move on to migration. Specifically, Sandy and Alexa, we've been following the story in the news around the migrant crisis, and Texas Governor Greg Abbott's decision to, like, you know, dunk on sanctuary cities by busing, boo, hiss, by sending migrants to New York City, and then the unfortunate, to put it lightly, response by from Eric Adams. So what's been your experience as council members responding to the arrival of migrants in the city, and what opportunities do you see for building stronger communities as migrants continue to come and be sent here?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. So this year I was appointed to be chair of the Immigration Committee at Council, and you know, it's so funny, when this whole situation started, and I'm begging everyone to stop using migrant crisis. Mm-hmm. I need y'all to help me help change the language that we are using, because it has sunk so deeply into people's minds that we are the crisis, and we are not the crisis. The crisis we have is incompetence, it's lack of humanity, it's lack of imagination, and just like, who cares about people? That is the crisis, not folks who are coming here for conditions we actually created. Pero I will stop going on there. Yes, I've been asking everyone to change the vocabulary because language is so important. Pero I guess I'll say, you know, when Abbott decided to traffic humans, because that is what he did, he trafficked people. I said something on Fox News, y yo lo quería, I wanted to, you know, something about herding cattle or something about cattle. ¿Qué sé yo de cattle? I'm a New York City kid. I get so many phone calls from people from the Texas and that area. They were so upset that I would offend the cattle that way and their beloved governor. And, you know, it just, we got so much work to do. Pero I guess what I will say is that, you know, for us, migration has always been an opportunity. This city is as fucking great as it is because of all the people that have come here, that have, you know, brought their pasteles and their tortillas and their chow fun, all that. So the truth of the matter is that, you know, we as a city need to meet that moment like we have in the past, and not be, not vacillate, right, and use it for political purposes. That's what we see this administration doing. I really like migrants. Migrants are the crisis. I really like migrants. Oh, they're the arbiters of crime. It's the crime wave, right? Like this kind of hypocrisy that we see at every kind of stretch of the imagination. So I guess the opportunities are economic, are cultural, are there. We have enough resources, y'all. We have to, we can't live in a scarcity mindset. That's part of the okie doke of capitalism and this system, is to make us so hungry that we're ready to push somebody aside. But the truth of the matter is we have resources. We are part of those resources. And there is enormous opportunity. Is there stress? Of course there is, right? We have a vacancy rate. We have a shelter system that we've decided to use as our housing system because we don't want to actually build truly affordable housing for New Yorkers. So we let them sit in shelters and kind of like turn a blind eye. That predated, right, arrivals. And so I guess I'll say, like, there are incredible opportunities if we embrace them and make space and place for people and support them with their language and all the skills. I mean, there was a bill that I was happy that had passed, that our city would start actually asking people, like, what are the skills that you bring? Because people are coming, they're ambulance drivers and they're pastry chefs and all kinds of amazing skills. And we were just ignoring it, right? Storing people like they're Lego blocks. And so to really just like lean into that dignity and humanity of everyone that's coming and really help them to figure out their place and help New Yorkers understand that this is part of our story. We're interconnected. It is not a she, it's not a they and them, separate. So I'll leave it at that so Sandy can jump in.
Thank you. Yes. I'll add on just a little bit. I will touch on, so yes, there's been challenges and mismanagement and fumbled balls on how to absorb people who are coming in with nothing. You know, Alex and I and other members went down when people were being bussed in and folks have like a little thank you plastic deli bag with their clothes. We met a woman, and it's literally scarred me because I don't have children, but I'm an auntie to like 11, and there was a woman who came off the bus and her baby was 3 days old, which means she had just had that baby to get on the bus ride, and that like hurt my body in a lot of different ways. And you know, it's just the inhumanity that this governor has done, but also tactically there has been an effect, and that effect has been some real disappointing attitudes that have emerged among the Latino community, where we have folks who are more established being very anti-asylum seekers, very anti-migrant. They're getting all this, they're getting all that, and we've been here. I had two women who I love and adore, elderly women who came into my office just to dance out with me, and we're helping them. They live in NYC. They're two Puerto Rican women, and they're quite elderly, and they were like, oh, the migrants are getting everything, and I'm living in this shitty NYC unit, and we're trying to, and I'm like, first of all, number one, you're in a NYC unit with lots of protections. NYC being incompetent, yes, and this was the former public housing chair, so we can talk about that forever, but you're in a place and you have rights and your descendants have rights. These are folks who are living in a crap hotel and they've got 30 days, maybe. Right now they got 30 days, 30 to 60 days, depending on if they got children or not. 30 days to come here with nothing on their back and figure out their next steps with nothing. No right to work, a bag of clothes, and a bunch of people in New York who now have decided that these folks are the problem, that you're the problem. So there's a lot of misinformation that's being pumped into our communities that have rightfully felt left behind, and they feel that they have not been given the urgency and attention of resources that these folks have come, that are getting. But the way that it is being pumped into our communities is creating a very dangerous situation that is really an all hands on deck moment for all of us to be challenging those narratives and putting new ones out there, because it is pervasive and the people who are putting it out there have a lot of money and they have media power and they are very serious about making New York City unwelcome for immigrants and folks seeking asylum. That all the way to the point that this November, this administration has put forth a charter review commission that might put on the ballot, do we want New York City to remain a sanctuary city? That might be a question in November. And given the attitudes and the stress that people have felt on this city, I'm not sure we're gonna come through with that if that happens. So we need really all hands on deck to change this attitude and stop this misinformation. And it's really, it's sad and it's hurtful, especially because when you talk to people who have just, also their family members came with nothing on their back, like 30, 40 years ago. So there's that happening. And I think, the reality is, we are just at the precipice of mass migration. We've got climate crisis, we've got, the ecological systems across the world are slowly being destroyed, and we are going to be having waves of folks, not just from outside the United States, folks who live here, folks from the South, folks from the Southwest. I mean, I have a sister who lives in Texas, my mom lives in San Antonio. Every time we talk, I'm like, when are you coming north? Because I don't know, you don't know. There's, no water, your grid's collapsing down there, like what's going on? So the way we think about what's happening now and the systems and the precedents we set now are going to inform how people both who were born and raised in the United States and people who are from outside the United States get received later on. And I really feel it's important that New York City builds systems of care and infrastructure that can absorb people, and not just on the city, right? Like, because New York City has no cooperation from our surrounding counties who want workers, who want people living in their counties, who have counties that, are aging counties because people are leaving, and we're not getting any cooperation to help people positively move into these other places that they could work, they could live, they could have cheaper rents, they could send their kids to school. So we have a lot of challenges, and I think that it's been, I think the administration started off being like, oh yeah, they're welcome here, and then when he realized how much this was gonna be, he quickly fell into the trap and just went very negative and divisive, and it's had a really negative impact throughout New York City.
I'm really glad that you all both mentioned this pervasive crisis narrative, this narrative of pitting newer immigrants against more established immigrants or other communities of color that maybe are from here, but it's, as a student of history, it's just like copy and paste, right? Each wave of migration, it's the same thing over and over and over again. And if you study those things, you realize just how copy paste does the same thing and doesn't matter. And like the same thing was said about the previous wave of folks that are now saying it, perhaps. And it's used over and over again because it's so effective. So it's just like the same divide and conquer that's always been happening. So thank you so much for speaking to that. We're gonna move on to November. Sandy spoke a little bit about November, and we're coming to the end of our time, so let's try and keep it short and cute. I wanna know what local races y'all are paying attention to here in New York and also around the country, but also the presidential election. What you all see as the biggest threat regarding the presidential election in November, and also where you see the biggest opportunity.
Okay, so I would say, I forget the district that was, but it's upstate New York. It's a district that we can flip, was Democratic, went Republican, you can flip it back, said Democratic, to see, which one? 17, there you go, 17, District 17. And 2 districts on Long Island, again, that we can, hold on to, District 3 and, flip, District 4 on Long Island. And I think those are the 3 races that we need to be laser focused and put our resources into, because, whether Biden wins or doesn't win, we need to take back control of Congress.
No, that's right.
For several reasons, and as a Puerto Rican, Congress has a lot to do with all the shit that's going on in Puerto Rico. Because Puerto Rico has to decolonize, and we're not going to ever get there if we have a Republican Congress and a president like Trump who doesn't care about Puerto Rico, he doesn't care about people of color, he doesn't, he talks about black jobs. I'm like, what the hell? All right then, yeah. So all of that has to happen, and we are, we're working in coalition with other labor unions, other community organizations to drive those campaigns out there. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess, look, the big threat is the orange chupacabra. It's frightening. Someone just asked, and I guess, like on the notion of Puerto Rico, like Democrats haven't been doing real shit for Puerto Rico either. Straight up, like to be real, right? Nevertheless, with the orange chupacabra, we know where we need to go right now. And we need to push real hard. We need to push all these parties to do right by our people. Pero I guess, where I'm focused is someone asked me this the other day. They said, so, should we be like national? I was like, yeah. But the truth of the matter is next year, our mayor's up for re-election.
Yes.
And he is very Trumpian, if you haven't noticed. And I was like, I got a local Trump we need to deal with. But y'all really need to focus here, of course, on the national. So New York City has some work to do around how to make sure that they get a mayor that actually really does have some values and is not doing the bidding of real estate and corporations, because that is the only fealty this mayor has. So we're gonna have to hit the doors, y'all. We're gonna have to figure out a true strategy. There are some other local races, like other council races, and obviously those are all important. Other state races, those are important. I mean, honestly, Long Island is tan loco, but listen, the trend of our people, moving right is really a frightening proposition, and it's real, right? It's really real, and We have got to figure out, like I told my staff, every time somebody walks in that door, we are rebuilding democracy. We are trying to get people to understand that this democracy belongs to them. This government is good. It can be good. They've done a lot of fuckery, but they can be good. But we have to rebuild that in our communities. And the truth is, we got a lot of work to do, y'all. And I guess I'll just leave it at that because we're out of time.
No, I'll keep it short and sweet. I think we, New York City is slowly growing pockets of Republican strongholds that we can no longer act like our city is this like blue island somewhere. It's not. And I think I think local organizing is the way to go. I mean, we have even our own Democratic Party here in Brooklyn spends money to fight Democrats and to support Republicans, which is crazy. And so we don't have true democratic infrastructure that is capturing people, that is out there communicating the right messages to people, that is putting money into being on the ground in off years and getting people involved and getting people signed up to volunteer and building a real party. I give my $10 a month to Working Family Party. And shout out to Destiny over there. Because, I want to support other things. I'm formerly an organizer. I always will organize. I try to organize inside even my job now, with my colleagues. So we have to build infrastructure. We have to pull people in. We have to put money towards doing that. We have to spend time developing messages and showing people that we can do stuff for them, because nobody's gonna go with us if we can't even get their fucking garbage clicked up on their block. We have to really prove stuff, and we need to stop taking people for granted. The South of Brooklyn is red. Like, Alexa is a stronghold. She's on the front line right now. And so we've got to really hold ground, and we need to go on the offense. And I feel like, the national is important. New Yorkers often take our vote for granted because generally everything goes blue. But, spending time to, hitting the phones for other states is important. But I think more importantly, we got to shore up New York City, because it's not there. And I'm really afraid that we're not doing what we should be doing. And I think there's just a lot of work to do.
So real. Thank you so much for your work and for your time here today. It's not a surprise to me that 4 years after some of the biggest uprisings we've seen, like at least in my generation, we're at a moment of such deep backlash where it's really politically convenient to pit migrant communities and other more established people of color communities against each other. It's very, very effective, and we need to do all of the work that you all have spoken to really combat it and save whatever shred of democracy we have left. Thank you so much for being here, for your time. This is the Chisme tour, so I've been tasked with giving you a little piece of Chisme of something to check out and something that I'm into. I'm a podcast girly, so my recommendation for you is going to be the Perreo 101 podcast. You can check it out on YouTube. My friend and colleague Gata hosts it, and she does all of these really dope interviews. She's not afraid to talk about Black Latina power. She's not afraid to talk about trans Latina power. She's, I think, interviewing Villano Villano, just really dope stuff. So make sure to check that out. And thank you so much for being here, y'all. You got some music for
Again, y'all need the color coordination, and I'm just gonna stand out.